Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. This is a very short clarification video. Viewers had questions about a couple of my recent videos, and I'm going to briefly address them here. I included this diagram in my Greta Makes the Planet Hot as Venus video. The diagram shows that Earth's troposphere cools 10 degrees Celsius with each kilometer gain in elevation. And I made the point that it doesn't matter how much water vapor there is in the atmosphere as long as the humidity is below 100%. This is important because water vapor is the primary greenhouse gas on Earth. And it tells us that the lapse rate in the atmosphere is independent of the amount of greenhouse gas. The confusion comes in with the term dry adiabatic lapse rate. There's a different lapse rate which is smaller for saturated air. It is frequently called the wet adiabatic lapse rate. It is different from the dry adiabatic rate because of the latent heat of water evaporating and condensing. And the terminology is confusing because most people associate dry air as meaning low humidity. But in the context of the lapse rate, even 99% humidity is considered dry. It's unfortunate that the people who chose the terminology use the terms wet and dry rather than saturated and unsaturated. But the key point is that the amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere has no impact on the dry adiabatic lapse rate, other than a minor effect of different molecular weights, which is not important in Earth's atmosphere because CO2 is only 0.04% of the atmosphere. On Venus, the lapse rate is a little bit higher because CO2 has a higher molecular weight than either nitrogen or oxygen. This causes a larger pressure increase on Venus across 1 kilometer of the atmosphere. This is fairly technical, and I expect there will be more questions raised by what I just said. The other slide which caused confusion is this one from the World Starts in 1960 video. People couldn't understand why it was a problem that Zeke started his temperature trend at the low point in sea ice. The reason is because it was warm prior to 1960. That's why sea ice was declining, because the air temperature was warm. But after 1960, it got cold and sea ice expanded very rapidly. So what Zeke from Berkeley Earth did was he cut off all the warm years prior to 1960 and started right at the beginning of the cold years. Remember, in that video I was discussing temperature trends, not sea ice trends. I was just using sea ice extent as a proxy for temperature. Hopefully this helped a few people and didn't put everyone else to sleep. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.